to share with you 5 tips for how to get the most out of your appraisal. I have a family member who's buying a house in a different city, and unfortunately I don't think that their agents did any of this for their appraisal. So I just wanted to put this info out there for anybody who needs it. Probably relates to any market that you're in. In my experience, these are the things that I've found that are going to help you get the most money back in your pocket after your appraisal. So tip number 1, and this is what your agent needs to be doing for you. Your agent needs to find comps, even if they're farther out of the way, even if they have to stretch the comps a little bit. They need to think outside the box and try to find homes that are going to show the value that you're under contract for, especially if you've gone over your list price and they need to find new comps that are different from the ones that they used to list your house initially. Because if you're getting more than that, then you need to see if you can find something on the market that has sold that is going to show the value for what you're under contract for. So they have to dig. Even if the comps aren't perfect, they've got to show the value somehow. So find comps and share those with the appraiser. Another thing your agent can do is they can show the percent increase on the market. So I listed a house last year that the people had just bought only 10 months previous, and we were trying to get quite a bit more money out of it. But when I went and looked at the market and what the percent had actually done in the entire market in that time period, we weren't that far off from what the appreciation had been. And so your agent needs to do a little bit of homework and look up what the percent increase has been in the market, and then show that to the appraiser and say, hey, here's what the home prices have been doing in the last 10 months or 12 months or however long you've owned the home. If it's been 6 years, go back 6 years and see what the percent increase in price has been in that market, and then share that with the appraiser compared to where your price is. And you might see that there's actually even more value if you look at it that way. You can also, this is part of tip number 2, you can go ahead and increase, you can show like some of your other offers that you got. Like if you were under contract and you have multiple offers, let's say you had 5 offers, your agent can share that information with the appraiser. They don't have to tell them what all the terms were, but knowing that there's that much demand impacts how much a property is worth. Tip number 3, what your agent can do for you is they can call other agents that have pending contracts in the area that are in a similar price point. So let's say your neighbor's house is also on the market and it's under contract as well, but they haven't closed yet, so it's not a sold comp. Appraisers still do look at pending comps in the area just to see what the actual like live snapshot of the market is doing. So if it were me, I would call the listing agent of your neighbor's house and I would say, hey, have you guys had your appraisal yet? Do you mind sharing with me what you're under contract for, how many offers you had, how far over list price it is? And if you've had your appraisal, what that appraisal came back as. Because if the next door neighbor's house is listed, they've already had their appraisal and the appraisals come back at the value that they need, you can share that information with the appraiser even if it has not closed yet. And that can make a big impression. Tip number 4 is to provide a list of updates and how much value those updates cost. So it's not so much, let's say you did all new flooring through your house in the time that you've lived there. If you were to pay someone to do that flooring, maybe it would have cost $10,000. But you did it yourself, so you saved a bunch of money, but you still increased the value by what it would have cost if someone else had done it. So if you say all new flooring throughout, you can put $10,000 next to that because that's how much that costs. It might not have cost you that much, but that's how much that value of that service is. If you painted, if you changed a light fixture, if you had to update anything, any new appliances, like make an itemized list. And yeah, the appraiser might be able to dig back in your old listing or look through your seller's disclosure and see those things. But if you can hand them a piece of paper that has like 18 different things on it, that's going to add value in and of itself. Like that looks like the property has been improved. When you hand them a piece of paper that says, here's what we've done, here's how much that would cost someone to do, that has a lot of value in it. Tip number 5 is to keep the house staged and furnished. Show ready. And the reason why is because appraisers are humans, and they have opinions just like humans do. So if you kind of let things loose and your house is a big mess and your dog is jumping all over them and it smells and you didn't clean up last night's dinner, it's all over the stove, like those type of things, whether an appraiser is supposed to look at them or not, appraisers are humans. And so those types of things are going to impact their opinion, not just of you, but of the space. And if there's something that's that distracting, then it's going to distract them from being able to see the true value of the home. Also, a note on staging, especially for vacant properties. I will tell you a personal story of last year. I had a property under contract. We sold over list price, and my clients had an incredible style. We had also staged a portion of their home, and it looked amazing. Unfortunately, we lost that first buyer the night before closing. All the staging had already been moved out, all their personal belongings were moved out, and it was just an empty shell of a home. And without all their beautiful things in it, the house looked a lot less impressive. And so even though we had already appraised at the value over list price before, the second time we got a buyer and we went through that appraisal process again, when the house was not staged and did not look as pretty without their stuff, and again, this is like 30 to 40 days down the road, so there are even more sold comps at higher prices by that point. Our appraisal came back $8,000 low because appraisers are human, and because that house made a huge impression of value when it was staged the way that people could see its true potential. But when you took all that out and you just were looking at an empty shell, it was really difficult for the appraiser to get us the value that he needed to get us. And so I would just encourage you to pretend like your impression on the appraiser is just as important as your impression on the buyers that you're trying to get to offer you over list price. A few other tips for realtors, I would say, is to be friendly, build rapport. The listing agent needs to let the appraiser in. Whether there's a combo box or not, just that 3 seconds of, hey, how are you? Like being a friendly face is going to put them at ease. It's the same thing as a first impression with anyone. And so if you're just saying, okay, go use the combo box and let yourself in, you're not able to build that rapport with them, even if it's only a 30-second conversation. Lean into and glean as much info as you can from appraisers, especially friendly appraisers. And I don't mean about that property, but about appraisals in general. I always strike up a conversation with an appraiser about their experience and tips that they have and experiences that they've had. People love to talk about themselves. So if you start to ask the appraiser about their experience and their knowledge and what they're an expert at, they're going to want to tell you about that because that's what humans do. And then lastly, I would say buyers and sellers both need to be aware that even if you do everything right, the appraisal can still come back low. So don't count your chickens before they're hatched. If you're the seller, don't start spending that money before you know that you have it. And if you're the buyer, be prepared that in this market, it is very realistic that you might have to bring extra money to closing if the appraisal comes back low. It's not a given that the seller is just going to lower that price. That happens sometimes, but in my experience, especially last year, I had 3 different sellers whose buyers brought the difference. And so I think that both people just need to have their expectations set from the beginning of what to expect, and that until it's not over till the fat lady sings, you know? So all in all, I would say just building rapport, realizing that appraisers are humans, those things matter. And if you don't have an agent who's going to do all that extra work for you, then you need to, first of all, call me. But second of all, if you're not in my market, still call me, because I can refer you to someone who's going to make sure that they do that for you. So those are my tips for winning the appraisal. I think it's going to be really, really important this year, especially because home prices are going up so fast. The appraisers are going to want to keep us in check, and they should. That's their job. So, all right, talk to you soon, guys.